SureTouch is an innovative masonry system for new construction and renovation projects. This system was developed by Permacon, a company that has been manufacturing masonry and landscaping products for more than 60 years. This cladding masonry system will enhance your home with its contemporary look. This innovative masonry system has many advantages. One of the major advantages of SureTouch is its thermal resistance, which increases the insulation of your home to a value of R13.5, allowing you to attain and even surpass the current building code standard. SureTouch allows you to enjoy significant savings and can reduce your heating costs by up to 42%. The energy-efficient SureTouch system is very flexible since it is designed for both new constructions and renovation projects. And the results are spectacular. SureTouch does not require a concrete foundation. A SureTouch starter strip is sufficient. Once installed, the components of the SureTouch system, namely the polystyrene, concrete stones or bricks, and the mortar, increase soundproofing. The back of the polystyrene panel is covered with vertical grooves, which creates the airspace needed for aerating the wall and allowing water to flow down. There is also an airspace between the stone or the brick and the polystyrene. The condensation can follow the grooves down and be evacuated at the bottom of the panel through weepers. The SureTouch system surpasses the high requirements of the Canadian Construction Materials Centre, CCMC 13302-R. Technical support is available at all times at suretouch.ca. The SureTouch system is applied to a wall with a conventional wood structure studs at 16 inches center to center. Any application to another type of structure must be adapted accordingly and approved by the SureTouch technical team. Make sure the walls to be covered are straight, since the SureTouch system is applied directly to the air barrier. Make sure any visible deviations, bulges, or imperfections on the surface of the walls are thoroughly corrected. It is much easier and faster to install the SureTouch system on a solid wall that has no bulges or deviations. For this reason, we suggest you use OSB panels. These OSB panels will give you a larger nailing surface for installing electrical fixtures and starter strips for sills, for example. Avoid using 10 test asphalt fiberboard or other flexible materials. If the foundation has a support base of 3¼ inches or more, it is adequate for supporting the SureTouch system directly. If the support base is narrower, as is often the case for renovation projects, a SureTouch starter strip will have to be added. The wall must be covered with an air barrier as recommended by the National Building Code. Apply the adhesive waterproofing membrane to the foundation or the SureTouch starter strip. Then fold the air barrier over and affix it to the adhesive waterproofing membrane. All openings must be protected against any water infiltration before the SureTouch system is installed. We suggest you affix the air barrier completely around the opening using an adhesive waterproofing membrane. Attach any roof, fence, hook or anchor such as a clothesline to the structure of the house before installing the SureTouch masonry cladding. Any deterioration caused by attaching such elements directly to the masonry cladding is not covered by the warranty. Electrical wires should be installed through the wall at the precise location where they will be affixed. Don't make the mistake of placing your wires on the outside of the wall. Before starting your SureTouch project, purchase the following items from your renovation center. Number 8 deck screws, 1½ inches to 2 inches. Lepage Premium PL Glue. Urethane acoustic caulk. Adhesive waterproofing membrane. 1/8 inch washers. Tape for air barrier. A few items are optional. J trim for windows. Small 3/4 inch by 3/4 inch brackets. 1/2-inch thick cement board. Insulation panel nails, 3 inches. Minimal expansion spray foam. H-clips for roof panels, 7/16 of an inch. Concrete screws. Different types of adhesive waterproofing membranes are available at your renovation center, namely Resisto or Blue Skin. When you receive the SureTouch material, make sure you place it very close to your project. This way, you will avoid unnecessary handling. Store your bags of SureTouch mortar in a warm, dry place. Make sure you have received all the materials needed. Breakage may occur during shipping. Don't worry. These stones or bricks can be used at the sides of openings, in inside corners, and in outside corners. When the order is placed, a 7 to 8% loss is included for damage caused in shipping and installing the system. Masonry must never come into contact with thermal-flexible elements. Always leave a minimum of 1/8 of an inch space between the two. A SureTouch starter strip will be necessary horizontally if you do not have a foundation with a support base of at least 3¼ inches minimum. A SureTouch starter strip will also be necessary below an opening, above a roof, above a wood deck, etc. For renovation, 3 options are available. For an opening with a length of 4 feet or less, cut the starter strip the same length as the opening. For an opening with a length of 4 feet to 10 feet, cut the starter strip the same length as the opening. Screw it to the lintel every 8 inches. For openings over 10 feet, 2 options are available. The first one, cut the starter strip in the same length as the opening, plus 3 inches on each side. Screw it into the lintel every 8 inches. Make a saw cut behind the units. The second option, use conventional masonry angles. For new construction with an opening with a length of 4 feet or less, located on the ground floor only, cut the starter strip the same length as the opening. For an opening with a length of 2 feet to 10 feet, cut the starter strip the same length as the opening, plus 3 inches on each side. Screw it in the lintel every 8 inches. Make a saw cut behind the units. For an opening over 10 feet, 2 options are available. The first, cut the starter strip the same length as the opening, plus 3 inches on each side. Screw it into the lintel every 8 inches. Make a saw cut behind the units. It is very important to make sure the lintels of the structure and the starter strips are effective. In case of doubt, consult an engineer. The second option, use conventional masonry angles. When installing starter strips in an inside corner, cut the starter strip so as not to touch any other surface, leaving at least 1/8 of an inch between the thermal flexible elements. Continue with the remaining part of the starter strip for the adjacent wall, always leaving at least 1/8 of an inch between them. For an outside corner, measure 3 3/4 inches on the base at a 90-degree angle. Then cut the end piece. Install it in the appropriate place, then continue with the remaining part of the previous piece. Leave 1/8 of an inch between the two for expansion. You can recut the end piece of the SureTouch starter strip in sections. Then, re-drill the sections and install them over an opening, following the radius of the opening. Always leave a minimum of 1/8 of an inch space between the opening and the SureTouch starter strip. To install the starter strip on a concrete wall, you will need to use concrete screws measuring 3/16 of an inch by 1 1/4 inch with countersunk heads at every 8 inches. For an opening larger than 10 feet, such as for a garage door measuring 14 feet or 16 feet wide, we strongly recommend that you use a conventional angle measuring 4 inches by 4 inches, having 3/16 of an inch or 1/4 inch thickness. The polystyrene panels are always installed from left to right. Use only SureTouch stainless steel screws and anchors. Do not place the panels directly on the starter strips or the foundation. Always leave a minimum space of 1/4 inch and a maximum of 3/8 of an inch. Apply a urethane acoustic sealant behind the last panel at the top of the wall. This joint will limit the circulation of air between the panel and the wall. Attach all of the polystyrene panels to the studs using a SureTouch stainless steel anchor and screw at least every 2 square feet. To achieve this ratio on a structure at 16-inch center to center, the anchors should be spaced to a maximum of 19 inches apart vertically and should be all screwed into studs. The vertical edges of the polystyrene panels do not have to be aligned with the stud centers. Attach the anchors at the bottom of a cell so that the prongs are visible under the stones or bricks once they are inserted. When the mortar is injected, these prongs will sit on the mortar joint and hold the cladding firmly to the structure. To turn a 90-degree outside corner, make 2 vertical 45-degree cuts on the back of the panel. The cuts must be made at 45 degrees for the polystyrene cells to hold the corner units firmly in place. To determine where to make the 45-degree cuts at the back of the panel, mark your first measurement, short point, and transfer this measurement 5 grooves over for the second 45-degree cut. This is the same principle as for baseboard trim used inside a house. For an inside corner, cut a section of panel A at a right angle, 90 degrees, so that it fits properly all the way to the edge of the wall. Once fastened in place, remove 2.5 inches of the edge of the cells along the corner. Join part B of the panel to part A. You can install all of the polystyrene panels without installing all of the fasteners, using a level for each panel. For the Morency or Durham stone panels, if you plan to cover all the walls of the house, start over the upper right corner of the door in the back of the house. The offset for the Morency stone panels is 10 inches up and to the right. Reference numbers are provided on the front and back of each panel. Male and female keys are located on the sides to assist installation. On the back of the panel, there are also lines every 10 inches to assist the cutting of the panel strips. If the SureTouch cladding is installed on the facade and runs around both sides of the house for a few feet, proceed as follows. Go around the corner with the polystyrene for a minimum distance of 12 inches and use a jade trim to hide the edge of the polystyrene. For installing the cladding only on the facade, cut a 2-inch strip of polystyrene from the left of the panel. The stone installed will hide the extremity of the adjacent wall. When installing the stones, you will have to fasten the units along this edge with drops of glue to prevent them from coming off. At the top of a wall, the panel should be cut so as to leave a few inches so that eventually the SureTouch cladding can be extended a little into the attic space. Then the soffits can rest against it. The cut pieces can be used elsewhere, respecting the numbers that appear at the front of the panel boards. If you plan to cover all of the walls of the house with Durham stone, refer to video 5.1 of the Morency panel, considering its installation is identical. However, the offset for the Durham panels is a quarter sheet up from left to right. Reference numbers 1 to 4 are provided on the front and back of each panel. Male and female keys are located on the sides to facilitate installation. On the back of the panel, there are also lines every quarter sheet for cutting panel strips. If the SureTouch cladding is installed on the facade and runs around both sides of the house, proceed to video 5.1 of the Morency panel. For installing the cladding only on the facade, cut a 2-inch strip of polystyrene from the left of the panel. For the concrete brick and the clay brick panels, the installation principles are the same. They are installed horizontally so that the vertical joints of the panels are offset a little, as in the case of drywall panels. Check the level with a straight line marked on the walls, all around the building, and correct as needed. At the bottom of walls, always leave a space between the base of the panels and the starter strip, or the foundation. This space must be at least as wide as the other mortar joints. Although they are designed to hold in place on their own in their cells, the stone or bricks inserted in the polystyrene cells are only secure if they have been glued or the mortar joints have been completed. If the vibrations caused by site activities are strong, the polystyrene will only be able to hold the units for a short period of time. Therefore, the mortar joints must be applied quickly. We remind you that before the masonry units are installed, the sills and architectural accessories must first be installed. Never install a unit that is smaller than the smallest unit on the pallet. Never block the water drainage holes on the foam panels with anchors, glue, or mortar. When gluing the masonry units, place a drop of glue in the 2 upper corners of a cell. Never place the glue directly behind the unit. Identify the protrusion on the top of the stone. Insert the top of the stone into the back of the cell first, and insert the bottom toward the wall by pushing upward. The stones come in different sizes, each corresponding to a polystyrene cell. The order in which the units are installed in the cells is not important from a technical point of view. Simply find a cell that is the same shape as the stone and insert it. In the outside corners, as in the inside corners, all of the stones must be interlaced. To avoid having stones that are too small, break one of the sections of the polystyrene cell edges to create new joints and/or stone shapes. One stone extending 1 3/4 inch stone B, this produces a 3/4 inch joint for Morency between 2 90-degree stones and a 1/2 inch joint for Durham between 2 90-degree stones. Occasionally, you may have to deviate from this alternating pattern because of a conflict in stone height, stone B versus stone C and stone D. Interlace the cornerstones by alternating them, one above the other. One stone spaced 3/4 inch from the corner for the Morency stone, stone A, or 1/2 inch for the Durham. You will most likely have to cut the stones on each side of an opening as well as for inside and outside corners. To ensure that the mortar adheres adequately to the units must be broken using a guillotine and not cut with a saw. Always break the stone on the side opposite the corner so that the unbroken side of the stone is the one that shows. The clay bricks must be installed sequentially. one row at a time, starting from the bottom. In certain cases, it might be a good idea to start in the center of the wall and work towards the corners. A clay brick is not produced to precise dimensions. There are variations in size. Some can be inserted easily, others are more difficult. It is very important to plan for a mortar joint between the first row of the brick and the starter strip, or the foundation. The collection of classic concrete bricks stands out as a result of its 5 different brick lengths. They must be installed with vertical joints that are offset from one another. You must align the protrusions on the top of the bricks with the small gaps in the upper section of the polystyrene cell. This way, the vertical spaces for the SureTouch mortar will all be ½ inch wide. When a sill is installed, there is no polystyrene behind it. You have to cut the polystyrene so as to create the opening required to install a sill, adding at least 1½ inch to its width at each side. Allow 3/8 of an inch more than the total height. The 3/8 inch corresponds to 1/8 of an inch for the starter strip, 1/8 of an inch for the spacer, and 1/8 of an inch of space above the sill and below the window. With windows having jambs and soldiers, cut the required width on each side. When the polystyrene is removed, inject an acoustic seal at the back along the polystyrene to trap the air. Cut a section of the starter strip approximately the same width as the sill. Install an acoustic joint at the top of the back of the starter strip. Place the starter strip on the polystyrene and screw it into the structure every 8 inches. Place a drop of glue on all screw heads and screw holes of the starter strip. Put 1/8 of an inch spacers, such as flat, galvanized steel washers, at the bottom of the steel starter strip so that the sill slopes about 5 degrees toward the front. When you install the sill, it will be supported by the starter strip glued to the structure with a PL premium that you placed on the screw heads and tilted 5 degrees by the spacers, all 1/8 of an inch from the window. This space will be filled by a caulking joint at the end of your job in order to seal everything. You can install soldiers in 2 ways, namely protruding ½ inch or even with all the other units. Whether you are installing a lintel above an opening or on each side as a jamb, the installation principles are the same. A protruding installation is done as follows. Measure the space required. Break portions of the polystyrene ridges in order to be able to insert pre-assembled bricks or stones. Using the PL Premium glue, pre-glue the soldiers to a lightweight cement board, ½ inch thick by approximately 6 inches by the length of the opening. Once the glue is completely dry, attach the soldier course to the studs, 1/8 of an inch from the starter strip or each side of the opening. This space will be filled with caulking later. Use 2 3-inch deck screws per joint to fasten the panel. One of the 2 screws must be partially sunk to serve as a metal strap. To hold the lightweight cement board in place, use spacers at 1/8 of an inch from the starter strip. Use 2 3-inch deck screws per joint. One of the 2 screws must be partially sunk to serve as a metal strap. You will proceed in the same manner for an arch window. For an installation that aligns with the other units, cut the units to the right dimensions, allowing for a space of 1/8 of an inch between the bottom of the units and the SureTouch starter strip. You must respect the system's insulation on each side and above an opening. Fasten on the far side of an opening small 3/4 by 3/4 inch corner brackets, which will enable you to hold the jamb level with the wall until the SureTouch mortar is injected. Using H-clips, leave half-inch spaces between each of the elements for the SureTouch mortar joint. In order to hold the SureTouch polystyrene panels adequately in place below the accessories, use SureTouch anchors, taking care to remove the prongs, or use galvanized steel flat washers. This will prevent conflicts among the various elements. You can install the SureTouch accessories to protrude, namely on the polystyrene ridges, or flat with the units. To do this, you must remove the ridges to install the accessories at the back of the system. If you use accessories with standard dimensions, full height, full width, cut the polystyrene entirely. Use common half-inch polystyrene panels to have your accessories protrude half-inch. Fasten on the far side of an opening small 3/4 by 3/4 inch corner brackets, which will enable you to screw in a 3-inch deck screw and hold your accessory level with the wall until the SureTouch mortar is injected. Using H-clips, leave half-inch spaces between each of the elements for the SureTouch mortar joint, using the same specifications as for the Video 7.2. Masonry must never come into contact with a thermal flexible element. A caulking joint will seal everything. By thermal flexible elements, we mean everything that reacts to heat or cold, such as aluminum, shingles, canaxle, wood, vinyl, etc. Or even trim that hides the starter strip above an opening. Or, something that is more commonly used, you can install aluminum flashing over the starter strip to hide it. Don't forget that you have to install the adhesive aluminum flashing first and waterproofing membrane on top of the aluminum flashing so as to allow the water to flow out easily. The starter strip can be coated with a layer of primer, then finished in the same color as the opening.